Discovered my best friend was secretly dating my twin, pretending to be me. Now they're both blaming me for the mix-up. My fiancé and I are getting married this December. I'm 23, he's 27. We got engaged back in April, and honestly, I dove headfirst into all the wedding planning, pretty much running the show with my mom's help those first few weeks. Right from the beginning, the bridal party was set in stone. It was something we'd been dreaming up even before the ring. We knew exactly who we wanted involved, including the flower girl and ring bearers. For the flower girl, my heart was set on my sister's baby. My sister's not only my matron of honor, but her baby would look adorable being pushed in a stroller down the aisle by my 10-year-old cousin, who we would call our junior bridesmaid. As for the ring bearers, my fiancé was keen on including his best friend's little boy, even though, due to complicated custody issues, arranging for him to be there might be tricky. He'll be just around 1.5 at the wedding, so to keep things stress-free, we also enlisted my 2 cousins, brothers, ages 5 and 7, the junior bridesmaids' brothers. That way, if my fiancé's friend's little boy couldn't make it, there'd be no drama, and if he could, he'd have 2 older kids to help him down the aisle. The plan was perfect. These kids are close to us, the right ages, and their parents were all thrilled when I reached out just after we got engaged. Everything was unfolding smoothly until a few weeks ago. My mother-in-law brought up adding another flower girl to the mix. Quick background, my fiancé's brother, he's our best man, 24, lives way across the country and only about 7, 8 months ago started dating someone new, a 21-year-old woman who has a baby from another relationship, a little girl who will be about 10 months old now, so roughly 14 to 15 months by the wedding. My soon-to-be brother-in-law is taking his relationship very seriously and has even taken a fatherly role with her daughter. They're not rushing, but he talks about marrying her someday. Though my fiancé and I have never met them, we're genuinely happy for him and of course invited both his girlfriend and her baby to the wedding. Here's where the waters got choppy. In a quiet moment just with my mother-in-law, she gently asked if I'd consider giving the girlfriend's baby a role, too, as a flower girl. It would be so cute, she told me, and explained the brother kept bringing up the idea. I tried to be diplomatic and explained we'd already planned for my niece and my junior bridesmaid to take those roles, a baby in a stroller and a 10-year-old guiding her. What's one more? My mother-in-law pressed. By the wedding, she'll probably walk on her own. I tried to sidestep, promising to consider it with my fiancé, and later at home I told him. We decided this wasn't going to work. The logistics alone felt awkward. Would another baby walk beside the stroller? Could the 10-year-old handle 2 babies if needed? And beyond that, it felt odd and a little forced to have a child we'd never met, who might not be comfortable there, parading down the aisle. Not to mention, this is a new girlfriend and child in the family's life. If they ever broke up, there'd be photos of this little girl who's now a stranger in our wedding album. I grew up with pretty traditional rules. Unless you're engaged, you don't even get +1 at weddings, though I had relaxed even that. But having someone's new partner's child in the bridal party just seemed over the line. My fiancé agreed. It was our wedding, after all. He told his brother, gently, that we already had people in those roles, and for a while, it seemed settled. But then, another night at my mother-in-law's house, she brought it up again, this time with my fiancé present. He reiterated it was settled, but my mother-in-law pressed on, emphasizing his brother's feelings and how much it would mean. That tugged at my fiancé's heart, and suddenly he was wavering again. Meanwhile, I stood my ground, listing my practical and emotional reasons. Still, mother-in-law had a rebuttal for everything. All the kids are from your side except one, she said, hinting at a lack of representation for her family, though that was simply because there were no children on their side. There are 3 little boys, why not 3 little girls? She was completely on board, and all of a sudden it felt like I was an island, defending myself alone. She wasn't rude, just persistent, and every reason I brought up was countered with, they'll get married one day anyway, or she's already family. I kept saying, we'll think about it, but even then, my mother-in-law wasn't convinced, responding with, so, that sounds like a no. It was such an uncomfortable moment, I almost cried right there. Eventually, I managed to change the subject, but the whole encounter left me feeling like a total villain. Afterwards, my fiancé apologized for opening the door to the idea in front of his mom after we'd already agreed it was a no. He genuinely thought his mom just wanted an open conversation, not a campaign for her side. I told him everything was okay, but honestly, the whole confrontation made me feel so guilty for causing disappointment or tension in his family. Later that night, he called his brother one more time to firmly say the answer was no, we'd already made our choices. His brother was clearly sad, but he understood. And despite everything, I felt so weighed down with guilt, worried I'd made things harder for my fiancé, added strain between families, or disappointed people I care about so much. Little did I realize just how complicated things would get from here. A lot has happened in the last few days, and honestly, I feel like I'm living in some bizarre parallel universe. Right after that tense conversation, I couldn't shake the feeling that my fiancé's mother would run to his brother and tell him that my fiancé was all in for making her the flower girl, while I was the wicked gatekeeper against it. My fiancé reassured me, swearing up and down that he knew his mother better than anyone and she wouldn't twist things like that. I should have trusted my gut. The very next morning, his brother calls, saying he wants to talk. The moment the call connects, his first words are, "After our conversation last night, I talked to mom and she said you wanted to have her as the flower girl, but your fiancé wasn't on board." My heart dropped. He followed up with, "As your brother, I want to make sure you get what you want since it's your wedding." I was fuming, just as I'd predicted. My fiancé explained that we would still talk about it, but we'd already agreed there would be no flower girl, and that he really shouldn't have seemed so open to it the night before. The issue lingered over us all day like a storm cloud. I wrestled with my emotions. Part of me wanted to just give in for the sake of peace, to stop feeling like the villain, but the only reason my fiancé seemed to want this was because it mattered so much to his brother, not to us. In the end, though, we both realized, this is not his brother's wedding. A few hours later, we called his brother for the third time to say no. He was upset, again, but at last it seemed like it might finally be over. Wrong. The next morning, his brother texted again, pouring out how hurt he was. By now our patience was gone, the decision had been made. "It's our wedding. Please get over it," we told him, as gently as we could muster. That's when things escalated. His brother pulled in their mother, who promptly launched into a nearly hour-long phone tirade at my fiancé, barely letting him speak. To his credit, my fiancé stood his ground, defending both of us and refusing to buckle under the pressure. But then his mom said something that stuck with me like a stab wound, that my relationship with their family would never be the same because of this decision, and that my fiancé's bond with his brother would be permanently damaged. That hit hard. It just kept spiraling. Soon enough, we spoke to my fiancé's sister and she dropped another bomb. His brother doesn't want to be best man anymore, and now both brothers don't want to speak to us. They insist this won't end until we give in. Honestly, I'm at a total loss for words. The whole thing feels surreal, like we're stuck in the Twilight Zone. I refuse to cave. At this point giving in would just teach them all that enough pressure and manipulation gets them what they want. The part that hurts the most is how close we all were before this blew up. If I'm honest with myself, my fiancé unintentionally set the stage for this mess. His family is absolutely crossing every boundary imaginable, but he gave them an opening by being too accommodating in that first conversation. Instead of shielding me from blame, he left things just vague enough that now they all act like this is my fault. And now, here we are, stuck in a family standoff that shows no signs of ending. Update 1. A lot of people in my life have pointed out something I've been quietly wrestling with. My brother-in-law is the golden child and has always held a level of favor with his mother that my fiancé never had. He's the youngest and she has coddled him since birth, while my fiancé, the oldest, has always played the role of peacemaker, often sacrificing his own wants just to maintain some illusion of family harmony. My future mother-in-law's manipulation runs deep, and it's clear now, her hand is behind so much of the family dynamic. Growing up, my fiancé would often find his little brother roping their mom into any argument, getting her to side with him, even when he was clearly wrong. He'd stir up drama and get my fiancé in trouble, seemingly for sport. It was textbook triangulation, and my fiancé, just wanting peace, would always swallow his pride and apologize, even when he was innocent, just to smooth things over. When we started planning our wedding, I was shocked at the expectation that we'd include a child, someone we've never met, who isn't even related to us, and whose mother I haven't met either, as such a significant part of our wedding party. Some part of me wondered if I was the crazy one for questioning this, so I felt validated hearing others confirm how bizarre it was. And I need to clarify something. When I said my brother-in-law and his girlfriend had been together for 8 months, that was generous. In reality, they'd only dated officially for 4 months, they just met 8 months ago. Our wedding is further away than the duration of their entire relationship. Yet they've been pushing, and pushing hard. My fiancé has spent his lifetime caving to this kind of pressure from his family, always the one to compromise his needs for some imagined family peace. But this is our wedding. For the first time, he doesn't have to swallow his feelings, he has me, standing by his side. I want our wedding day to be about us, not a showcase for someone else's agenda. Recently, everything came to a head. My fiancé decided to talk to his dad and then to his mom. They're separated. His dad, thankfully, is neutral in all this but has been supportive of me, and he's offered a lot of insight. That's when the whole story started unraveling, and things got uglier than I could have ever imagined. Turns out, my brother-in-law's girlfriend has been the driving force behind this demand that her child be in our wedding. She's been offended, making a huge deal about us saying no. Honestly, I can't even fathom asking someone to include my child in their wedding, let alone strangers. But what's worse is that it didn't stop there. From my conversation with my father-in-law, I learned that my mother-in-law and brother-in-law have been spreading lies about me. My mother-in-law is telling people I'm racist, saying that's why I don't want the girlfriend's child in the ceremony. Here's the kicker, I didn't even know the child and her mother were Filipino, because, I repeat, I've never met them, and they live across the country. I don't even know their last names. And for her to say this about me, especially when the wedding party is already made up of people from diverse backgrounds, is laughable. My brother-in-law has been spreading a different rumor, that we're judging the girlfriend because her daughter was born out of wedlock. The absurdity of this is astounding, since 2 of the children in the wedding, one from each side of the family, were also born out of wedlock. They've been busy gossiping, twisting words, making things up, and feeding lies not only to the mother-in-law but also to my fiancé's sister and their dad. My sister-in-law and father-in-law are both neutral, want nothing to do with this bitterness, and agree that the whole situation is absolutely nuts. They can see who is actually driving this drama, and honestly, so can everyone else with a clear head. My fiancé finally went to his mother's house to confront her about everything. She became absolutely hysterical, completely unwilling to listen to even a shred of reason. She denied, deflected, and lied about things we knew for a fact to be true. Any suggestion of her playing favorites was met with dramatic offense, but in the next breath, she'd defend my brother-in-law or shift the blame to me. Meanwhile, my fiancé has been trying to take the heat, attempting to shield me from the mess by taking blame upon himself, but it's futile. They've made up their minds and are driving themselves, and everyone else, crazy over it. The last time I'd even spoken to either of them was during a previous tense conversation when my fiancé's words accidentally sparked this chaos. All I did was express honest concern about having a child we didn't know be such a prominent part of our wedding, especially given that the couple isn't married or even engaged, and that we've already filled the wedding party roles. My fiancé is exhausted. He sees it clearly now. His mother fully expected him to collapse into the old patterns, to apologize for everything just to keep the peace. That's what he did growing up, it's what made him the easy child. But I'm here now, and neither of us is willing to play sacrificial lamb. He's hurt by their lies, infuriated that they'd so selfishly try to hijack our wedding for some grand gesture for his brother's girlfriend of 4 months. He's stunned by the depth of the drama, and he's done. He's ready to cut them off until they come to their senses. For what it's worth, our counselor, also our officiant, is just as gobsmacked by their request and the circus it has generated. This isn't the update I'd hoped for. There's a small part of me that wants to believe my mother-in-law might, at some point, realize that we're the family who actually lives close by, that she might want to be part of our lives, part of the lives of her future grandkids. But for now, this is where things stand. This is our line in the sand, our day, our way. Update 2. We're still keeping things low contact with my mother-in-law and brother-in-law. My fiancé isn't ready to speak with either of them yet, and honestly, I don't blame him. Brother-in-law hasn't made any effort to reach out to us. The night after my mother-in-law had that awful conversation with my fiancé, she found out that my sister-in-law would be coming to my first dress fitting, something to which she wasn't invited. She actually asked my sister-in-law to call me and see if she could come along. I told her that there would be others there, and honestly, I knew I wouldn't be able to truly enjoy the day with all that tension hanging in the air. The day of the fitting, I had a wonderful time with my sister-in-law. I made a point not to bring up everything that was going on. She was already getting an earful about it from both her mom and my fiancé, and the last thing I wanted was to drag her further into the mess. Afterward, my mother-in-law reached out to both me and my fiancé, wanting to talk to us in person and even suggesting a few possible dates. My fiancé was firm, telling her he just wasn't ready to talk after how things had gone down the previous day. Honestly, the timing of it all makes it clear to me. She knows if she doesn't make this right, she's going to be out of not just the wedding festivities, but also everything else that's happening in our lives. We just put an offer in on a house, for example. These are big moments, and she's risking missing all of it. I'm still hopeful that, someday soon, we'll be able to mend things with her. I'm also hoping his brother comes around, especially now that we've had a chance to really explain everything to his girlfriend. My fiancé has made it clear that, before we can move forward, there has to be an apology. There's not a lot more to report right now, but I wanted to share where we're at and hope that things start turning around soon. Update 3. I guess whether or not it's debatable is up for discussion. Either way, he feels incredibly guilty now, and all he wants is to fix everything with his family. I'm truly convinced that my text to her actually showed her just how insane he made this entire situation. It probably opened her eyes to some of his issues. Honestly, I think he tries to manipulate her too, but it's hard to know for sure. I don't really know her or the exact nature of their relationship, so at this point, I'm just speculating. Still, I'm sure there were other problems between them. Nobody just breaks up with someone they're truly in love with just because of family drama. There has to be something else brewing underneath. Let me give an update on my mother-in-law. She called my fiancé the other day. This was before the breakup and everything, which we only just found out about this morning, and she said, "Maybe it's good this all happened. Now you're going to therapy to work on yourself and her." My mother is being super supportive. We really didn't appreciate that. It just came off as so condescending, to be honest. But after everything unfolded, he ended up calling her again this morning to talk. She said she was trying to come see us so she could apologize in person. I'm definitely going to hear her out and accept her apology. I'm ready to move on from this, but believe me, I'll always be watching my back. Things can be cordial between us again for sure, but I'll never forget. I'll keep updating as everything progresses, because honestly, nobody breaks up with someone they are truly in love with just because of their family. Update 4. Well, I thought I'd seen it all, but apparently this nightmare has more chapters. My mother-in-law did come over to apologize, and honestly, it went better than I expected. She seemed genuinely remorseful and admitted she'd gotten way too involved in something that wasn't her business. She even acknowledged that she'd been playing favorites with my brother-in-law his whole life, which was huge coming from her. For a moment, I thought we might actually be able to move forward. But then, 3 days later, Everything exploded again in the most twisted way possible. My fiancé got a call from his sister, and she was practically in tears. Apparently, she'd been getting weird messages from the brother-in-law's ex-girlfriend. Yes, the one with the baby we refused to include in our wedding. At first, my sister-in-law thought it was just her venting about the breakup, but then the messages got really strange. The girlfriend was asking detailed questions about our wedding, about me specifically, and even asked if she could get my phone number. That's when my sister-in-law realized something was off and decided to tell us. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The girlfriend has apparently been telling people that she's still invited to our wedding. Not only that, but she's been posting on social media about how she's excited to celebrate with her boyfriend's family and how her daughter is going to be the cutest little flower girl. I felt sick to my stomach. This woman, who I've literally never met, is either completely delusional or planning something. My fiancé immediately called his brother to figure out what the hell was going on, but of course, his phone went straight to voicemail. Then yesterday, things got even weirder. My wedding venue called me to confirm some details about the additional flower girl. I was completely confused until they explained that someone had called claiming to be my mother-in-law and had tried to add the girlfriend's daughter to our ceremony timeline. The venue coordinator said something felt off about the call, so she wanted to double-check with me directly. I'm honestly starting to wonder if this woman has some serious mental health issues, or if my brother-in-law put her up to this as some twisted revenge plot. Either way, I'm terrified she's going to show up at our wedding uninvited and cause a scene. My fiancé is finally seeing his family's true colors, but I'm worried it might be too late to prevent whatever chaos she's planning. The worst part? My mother-in-law is now claiming she had nothing to do with the venue call, but I find it really hard to believe this is all just coincidence. I think she might have given the girlfriend our wedding details during one of their supportive conversations, and now we're dealing with the aftermath. We've had to involve venue security, and I'm honestly considering hiring someone to make sure she doesn't crash our wedding. This whole situation has turned into something I never could have imagined when all I wanted was a simple, beautiful day with the people we actually care about. Update 5. I honestly don't even know where to begin with this update. Just when I thought we'd reached peak insanity, everything took a turn that I'm still trying to process. 2 weeks ago, my brother-in-law finally returned my fiancé's calls. But instead of the conversation we expected, he dropped a bombshell that left us both speechless. Apparently, his ex-girlfriend, the one who's been stalking our wedding plans, had been lying to him about pretty much everything from day one. Not only was she not the single mom she claimed to be, but she's actually married. Her baby daddy isn't some absent ex, it's her husband who's been deployed overseas for the past year. My brother-in-law found out when the husband showed up at his apartment unannounced, having just returned from deployment early. Can you imagine? This poor guy comes home to surprise his wife and finds out she's been playing house with another man across the country, using their daughter as a prop in some twisted fantasy life. But here's where it gets even more messed up. She'd been telling my brother-in-law that her ex was abusive and that's why she couldn't let him see their daughter. Meanwhile, she was telling her actual husband that she'd moved to be closer to her sister and was just making friends with my brother-in-law. The whole relationship was built on lies. My brother-in-law was devastated. He genuinely loved that little girl and thought he was stepping into a father role. Finding out he'd been unknowingly participating in an affair and that the child he'd grown attached to was being used to deceive her real father completely destroyed him. He broke down crying on the phone with my fiancée, apologizing for everything and admitting he'd been so blinded by what he thought was love that he couldn't see how unreasonable he was being. That should have been the end of it, right? Wrong. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was her, the girlfriend. She was hysterical, crying, begging me to tell the truth about what really happened. Apparently, in her twisted mind, I was the reason her life fell apart. She claimed that if I'd just let her daughter be in the wedding, none of this would have happened because it would have proved to everyone that she belonged in the family. The conversation was absolutely unhinged. She kept saying things like, "You destroyed my family," and my daughter asks about her daddy, my brother-in-law, every day. I tried to explain that I'd never even met her, but she wasn't listening to reason. She actually accused me of being jealous of her relationship and said I must have investigated her to expose her lies. When I told her I had no idea she was even married, she called me a liar. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You haven't won yet. I know where your wedding is, and my daughter deserves to be there. She's been practicing walking down the aisle." I immediately hung up and called my fiancé, who contacted venue security and the police. They couldn't do much since she hasn't technically threatened violence, but they filed a report and promised to have extra security at our wedding. But wait, there's more. Yesterday, my mother-in-law called, and for the first time since this whole mess started, she actually sounded scared. The girlfriend had somehow tracked down her address and showed up at her house with the little girl, demanding to know why the family was abandoning them. My mother-in-law said the woman seemed completely detached from reality, insisting that my brother-in-law was just going through a phase and that they were still together. When my mother-in-law explained that he'd moved back home and wanted nothing to do with her, the girlfriend became aggressive, saying she was going to fix everything at our wedding. She apparently knows details about our ceremony that only family members should know, which means someone definitely fed her information. During all this drama, the scariest part? My mother-in-law said the little girl was calling her grandma and seemed completely confused about why everyone was upset. This woman has clearly been filling that poor child's head with fantasies about being part of our family. My fiancé and I are now seriously considering postponing the wedding. We've invested so much money and our families are flying in from everywhere, but I'm terrified she's going to show up and cause a scene. The venue has agreed to have security, but what if she brings the child? I can't imagine having to watch security remove a confused toddler from our wedding. My brother-in-law is a mess. He's talking about moving back home permanently because he can't handle the situation. He's also been getting calls from the girlfriend's actual husband, who somehow got his number and has been alternating between thanking him for exposing his wife's lies and threatening him for the affair. It's like a nightmare that just keeps spreading to everyone around us. The wedding is in 3 weeks, and instead of feeling excited, I'm constantly looking over my shoulder and checking our wedding vendor contacts to make sure she hasn't called them pretending to be me again. I never imagined that saying no to having a stranger's child in our wedding would lead to discovering a web of lies, adultery, and what seems like genuine mental instability. At this point, I just want to elope and be done with it all. Update 6. I can't believe I'm writing this, but somehow things have gotten even more complicated. The wedding is next week, and I honestly thought we'd seen the last of the girlfriend drama. I was wrong. 3 days ago, my fiancé got a call that made my stomach drop. It was from his brother, but he wasn't calling to apologize again or update us on his situation. He was calling because the girlfriend's husband, yes, the deployed military guy, had contacted him with some information that changes everything. Apparently, when the husband confronted his wife about the affair, she broke down and confessed to more than just cheating. She admitted that she'd been planning to take their daughter and disappear with my brother-in-law, and that our wedding was supposed to be her introduction to the new family before they ran off together. Having a little girl as a flower girl wasn't just about inclusion. It was supposed to be proof to everyone that she belonged, making it easier for them to blend into his family when they started their new life. The husband was calling to warn my brother-in-law that she'd been stealing money from their joint accounts for months, supposedly to fund their escape plan. But here's the really disturbing part. She'd also been telling the little girl that her real daddy was coming back from a work trip soon, and they were going to live with him forever. She'd been preparing this child for what was essentially kidnapping, disguising it as a fairy tale. My brother-in-law was horrified. He had no idea about any escape plan. He thought they were just dating and taking things slow. The realization that he'd been an unwitting participant in what could have been child abduction sent him into a complete spiral. He immediately contacted the police and has been cooperating fully with the husband and military authorities. But that's not even the worst part. Yesterday morning, my sister-in-law called me in tears. The girlfriend had somehow figured out where she works and showed up at her office, this time without the child. She was dressed professionally and initially seemed calm, introducing herself as my brother-in-law's fiancé and asking to speak privately about family matters. Once they were alone, she completely changed. She started rambling about how I'd stolen her life and how she was going to fix everything at the wedding. Then she pulled out her phone and showed my sister-in-law photos, pictures of our wedding venue that she'd clearly taken while scouting it out, screenshots of our wedding website, and even photos of our house that she must have driven by to take. The most chilling part was when she told my sister-in-law that she'd already bought a flower girl dress in the right size and had been teaching the little girl a special walk for mommy's big day. She kept referring to our wedding as if she was the bride, completely detached from reality. My sister-in-law managed to record part of the conversation on her phone before the woman suddenly snapped back to seeming normal and left. We immediately took the recording to the police, who said it was enough to file for a restraining order, but the process might not be completed before the wedding. The venue has now agreed to station security at all entrances with photos of her, and we've had to provide them with a strict guest list. My parents are flying in tomorrow, and I had to explain to them why there might be police at their daughter's wedding. But here's where things get really twisted. This morning, my mother-in-law called with news that made me question everything I thought I knew about this situation. She'd been cleaning out some old family photos to make a memory board for the wedding when she found something that made her blood run cold. In a box of pictures from my brother-in-law's high school years, there was a photo from a family vacation they took about 6 years ago. In the background of one shot, barely visible, was a young girl who looked exactly like the girlfriend. My mother-in-law is convinced it's her, which would mean she's been aware of my brother-in-law and his family for years, not months. When my mother-in-law showed the photo to my brother-in-law, he went pale. He remembered that vacation. They'd stayed at a resort where he worked as a lifeguard during college breaks. If it really is her in the photo, it means she knew exactly who he was when she randomly met him 8 months ago. This wasn't a chance encounter, it was calculated. We're all starting to wonder if she specifically sought him out, planned the pregnancy timeline to coincide with her husband's deployment, and orchestrated this entire relationship as some kind of long-term obsession with his family. The thought that someone has been watching us for years is terrifying. The wedding is in 6 days. Half of me wants to go through with it and not let this woman's delusions rob us of our special day. The other half is terrified that we're walking into some kind of trap she's been planning for years. My fiancé is being incredibly supportive, but I can see the guilt eating him alive. He keeps apologizing for his family's drama affecting our wedding, but none of this is his fault. We've decided to go ahead with the ceremony but with heavy security and a completely closed guest list. Anyone not on the list gets turned away, no exceptions. I never imagined my wedding day would feel more like a witness protection situation, but here we are. I just keep telling myself that after this weekend, she'll be someone else's problem. But something tells me this isn't over, even after we say I do.